As someone who has been studying character design since I can remember, I can say without any doubt Hunger Games has some of the best character design and costuming I have ever seen. Every character's clothes tell a story beyond just simple color theory. But one character, and you can probably guess who from the title and thumbnail, has some of the best, if not the best, in the series. In today's video, I'll be using my knowledge as a character artist to both rank and dissect Effie Trinket's outfits in the Hunger Games. You'll definitely have something new to think about, not just with Effie, but with the series as a whole. I have ideas, you guys, I have ideas. I swear, I've spotted things that no one talks about. I want to share it with you. I want to talk about this. And the first thing I want to talk about is that when I first saw the series when I was younger, I thought Effie's stark white overdone foundation, you know where we see it's a bit cakey and cracked? I thought it was like a mistake when I was younger and I wasn't sure why they did that. But when I was thinking about it for this video, I can see that it's most likely done to show that she's overdoing everything she does, even with her foundation. And, might I say, we are literally seeing the cracks in the foundation of the first capital person we see, and I think that's just too perfect to be anything other than intentional. Or do you think I'm reading too far into that? Because that would be very on-brand for me. Now that that's off my chest, going back to Effie being over the top, this design tells us right off the bat, before she's even spoken and before we know who she is that she is over the top, has a bright personality, and is a bit of a peacock. That's what we can assume about Effie before we've even met her, and later in the series we see that this is completely true for her character. A successful character design is one that tells you what a character is all about before you've seen them speak or act. Let's get into why this design is successful. And we're gonna start with my favorite part of any design, the colors. And just in the colors alone, we get this feeling of high society and that overwhelming feeling I mentioned earlier. And what's especially interesting is that here we have a mix of pink and royal purple, all of course with the saturation dialed up to 1,000. What's interesting about it is what these two colors tell us about Effie. Pink is a traditionally feminine color that we associate with, you know, keeping up with your appearance, keeping up with your appearance, fashion, sexism, etc. And royal purple is one we associate with, well, royalty. But if these two colors separately reflect Effie, why combine them? Why not make them separate in the design? Wouldn't that make for a more dynamic look? And yeah, it might have made it look more dynamic, but that's not what we're going for with Effie, is it? Have you not been paying attention, imaginary person I used to segue into a talking point? We're going for overwhelming your senses with Effie, and your eyes have an easier time looking at two separate colors, especially complementary ones like pink and purple. It's easier to read and quantify that way, which means it's less overwhelming. As well, more pastel colors are softer and nicer on the eyes, but Effie isn't soft and nice. So by mixing the two colors together and blasting up the saturation, it gives your eyes so much more work to do in just comprehending what you're seeing. And that's just the color. Then we get into all the different shapes in this design. Usually characters only have one, maybe two shapes in their design, but here we see Effie with literally every single shape in her silhouette, and you probably guessed that's what's great about it. Having this many shapes is overwhelming, just like the colors, and helps us see what we're meant to, not only about Effie, but what we learn about the capital from this outfit. Remember, in the movie, Effie, aside from the intro with Caesar and Seneca, is the first person we see from the capital, and she's in District 12, so she really stands out here. This is just an A+ character design for how spot on it is, how unique it is, and how much it tells us about the world she's in. A good character design tells you about the character. A great character design tells you about the character and the world they're in. So if you couldn't tell already, it's definitely going into S tier. Before we get into Effie's train outfit, I do want to say again, if you're liking the video so far, please consider liking or copying the share link. You don't even have to subscribe if you don't want to, and if you do, you can always unsubscribe later. I'd love to keep making videos and sharing my art, but I won't be able to for much longer if I don't get the support I need from just 2 clicks. Now for Effie's train outfit. And just like the last section, there is a lot to see here. And remember how I said pastels are usually softer on the eyes? Well, leave it to Effie Trinket to make pastels a lot to look at. They made this train outfit look so unique from the last outfit we saw her in by changing her entire look. This adds to and confirms what we previously saw from Effie. She loves fashion and she's extra in every way. Extra enough to change so drastically between outfits less than 24 hours apart. So we see an equally extravagant outfit but in a completely different way, going from a deeply saturated deep color to shiny metallic pastels. This brings me to exactly how these pastels manage to go against everything pastels usually are. Usually soft and light on the eyes, but here they most certainly aren't. This is done by simply having two contrasting colors together. Usually when colors are next to each other, they complement each other. Blue goes with purple and green, pink goes with lighter reds or cream, but here the colors are completely opposite to each other, added with a shiny metallic finish just to give your brain a little bit something extra to process while looking at her. Overall, this has to be another S tier from Effie. She really does know how to make an entrance. I promise I'm not going to put every outfit from Effie into S tier, no matter how surprising that is to me, you, and Effie herself. That note brings us quite nicely to her penthouse outfit. Maybe I'm getting better at making videos. My segues are a lot smoother. Here we see her actually sporting two complementary colors here, green and teal. And I actually have a theory on why that is. I'll touch on it now a bit, but no, I'm setting something up for later. Here we see this is definitely not the most extravagant outfit we've seen her in. Don't get me wrong, it's still very much a lot, but it's not as much compared to the last two. I think this reflects her setting quite nicely, the penthouse, a time for relaxation. So I think this is quite the character moment for Effie as well, dressing for her environment, and it feels like every outfit she wears is dressing for the part, even if the part is supposed to be just relaxing in a penthouse. I also like to think that this earthy green is a sign she's growing closer to Katniss and Peeta. Green and teal, two colors very reminiscent of the trees back home, so to say. But again, let's put a pin in that for later. I'm really saving the best for last here. So Effie's penthouse outfit I think deserves B tier. It's good, it reflects Effie's personality, but it doesn't give us any more than we don't already know. And right before the last on the list, we have Effie's outfit during Katniss and Peeta's interviews. Here we see her go full royal purple. And remember how I said royal purple is associated with royalty? Well, before, in her introductory outfit in the Reaping, it had that additional pink in the mix. And here in the interview scene, I take this to mean that since Effie is now in full view of the Capitol, she's not in 12 anymore, so she has fully removed some part of her personality, the pink, to be full royal, full Capitol. And I like to think this reinstates one of the messages of the whole series, that no one goes unaffected by the Capitol's authority, not even someone as privileged as Effie. But because that leans into more of my own speculation, and I don't really see anything else from this outfit, there's no storytelling that I can spot like I did with the first two, I'm so sorry Effie, but this goes into C tier. Now time for the little bonus part I mentioned earlier. I cannot do a video on Effie and not talk about her District 13 outfit. This quite literally is where Effie is stripped of all her Capitol flair. No makeup, no wigs, no fancy dress, nothing. But most importantly, no cameras. And the colors absolutely reflect that, along with all District 13. Bleak and uniform. Drawing parallels to the Capitol for plot reasons I can't go into here because this video is all about Effie, and if you get me started, I will talk for hours. If you couldn't tell already, I love this series. So bringing it back to Effie, really, the star of the show is her headscarf. This, to me, proves that Effie was always a rebel, and hear me out. This is Effie stripped down to her barest of feelings. This is Effie with nothing weighing her down, where we see her truly as herself with no cameras to smile for. Yet, she still loves the creativity of fashion. She's passionate about it to the point where even in 13, with limited resources, she's pulling through as a fashion icon. At first, you might think her fashion is all about the Capitol, but here we see it isn't, because she's not in the Capitol. Effie's fashion may have had a Capitol coat of paint on it, but at its core, it was all her personality. At first, we might think that Effie is just a product of the Capitol. Everything about her is because of the Capitol, but here we see her personality is very much all her. This outfit really lets us see that clearly it was never about the Capitol for Effie. It was always about her. the real star of the show. And I love that for her. As well, this leads me back to what I wanted to talk about earlier. Remember when I said I'd put a pin in her getting attached to Katniss and Peeta? I think her dancing around the subject of Katniss and Peeta being in the games and going to die wasn't her being ignorant. Imagine how many people before Katniss and Peeta, how many tributes before Katniss and Peeta were under her care and died. No one made it out of the games from 12 since Haymich. Imagine how many kids Effie would have gotten attached to only to see them die. I think Effie dancing around the subject of Katniss and Peeta going into the games was her very much being defensive and not wanting to get attached to these two kids who she thought for sure was going to die. Then, in the second movie, we really see how much it hits her that Katniss and Peeta are going back into the games, because these two were finally the ones that made it out. These were the two that proved her wrong and showed her that she can get attached to them, only for them to be ripped away. Going back to the outfit, I want to add that at certain angles we can actually see that it isn't just any old piece of cloth. It's actually a map. And this just proves my point. It would still be creative if she made this out of some random fabric, but only someone who is at their core passionate about fashion would be creative enough to look at a map and say, yeah, that'd be a great headscarf. Speaking of which, my next video is really special. I've been working on it for a while. If you've seen my last two videos, one was dissecting Katniss's outfits, like I've done with Effie in this video, and the other was reading and drawing a story I've written, and this next video is sort of a combination of the two. I won't give any more hints than that, but if you're starving for more Hunger Games content while we wait for sunrise on the reaping like I am, I think you'll definitely want to see my next video. Just between you and me, I'm gonna be reading a story that I wrote about a girl from 7 who goes into the games, so you're gonna get to see like a whole new cast and a whole new arena, but shh, don't tell anyone I said that, it's a secret. Anyway, Effie serving in District 13 better than Coin gets an S tier from me. That's all the rankings I have for today. Please don't forget to like or subscribe if you liked this video. If you made it to the end, you might as well now, but if you don't, I still really hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you for being here. I hope you have a great day or night wherever you are, and bye-bye.